All right, well, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this History at High Noon program, Artisan Jewelry with History. My name is Stacy and I handle adult education over at the museum. And we're so glad that you're joining us for today's special lunchtime lecture. History at High Noon is just one of MOH's exciting digital offerings available as part of our History at Home initiative. So if you'd like to learn more, head over to the museum's website at www.ncmuseumofhistory.org. Before we get started, we would like to take this opportunity to thank our North Carolina Museum of History Associates and Foundation for making today's program possible. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which, in addition to many other things, helps make programming like today's program happen. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an associates member, you can head over to their website at www.ncmoha.com. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank those of you who donated funds towards today's program. We do our best to keep our programming free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping these series going, and we continue to be so humbled by your generous support of the museum and its programming. So thank you so much. A few housekeeping tips for today. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the event, and that you to please type any questions that you have for our speaker into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of the lecture, I will ask the speaker as many of your questions as time allows. All right, so now it is my honor to introduce today's speaker, Mamie Wilkins. Originally from Western North Carolina, Wilkins attended the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and settled in Raleigh. After years of working from home, she moved to a downtown Raleigh studio in 2015. Wilkins gains inspiration from her many cockamamie collectors and seeing how they mix and layer their pieces to reveal their individuality and personality with cockamamie jewelry. She is also one of our featured artists in our Museum of History shop. Mamie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome.
Hi. I hope everyone is doing great today in this crazy post-2020 times where we can go nowhere and you kind of feel held hostage in your homes. I hope that I'm providing at least a small little good thing for your day here today, just talking about jewelry a little bit and how you can make it with simple around the house items that you have, maybe things that come from your grandparents, your parents, things that you've held on to and it's been sitting in a box for a while. Maybe you can find some inspiration and listening to how I started making jewelry and ended up making it my how I make a living. So I'm going to talk a little bit about jewelry. Jewelry has been around forever. I mean, they discovered jewelry and Neanderthals over 115,000 years ago, made from seashells, and then there's they find bones, things made from fish bones and even scales and fish scales and all sorts of crazy items. So it's been around for a really long time. As they dig it up, and mummies were encrusted in all sorts of jewels, from their from crowns to, I mean, they pretty much had everything on. They had necklaces, they had headdresses, and all sorts of jewelry. And so it's something that not only was made to decorate the body, but also to show social or show your status in society. And so then you also had like amulets and talismans to protect against bad luck. And then also jewelry ended up being connected with commitment, as like the wedding ring. So we have all sorts of reasons that we wear jewelry. I mean, in Roman times, I find this hilarious. Roman women had like hair picks. I actually make some, you'll see in a video later, hair picks, but they made them super long such that they could be also just pulled out of the hair and used as a weapon. So that's kind of awesome. Don't get any ideas, ladies. So so yeah, I think that's kind of a little fun fact, but it's form and functional. It's used to fix clothing into place, like a cloak, like in Lord of the Rings. They had all the little cloak deals, and like cufflinks and as I talked about, the keeping hair in place as well. So it's, not only artistic display, but it also can be very symbolic. And it's really evolved over the centuries into all sorts of different reasons for wearing. I not that long ago made, all of a sudden I was just kind of feeling some type of way after a certain election, and stamped a certain, just a little quote, just stay woke, onto bracelets, and that ended up being a big deal. Like I sold a ton of them, and a artist actually ended up putting it on his album cover, which was really cool for me. Um so I get a lot of inspiration from old pieces. I love looking at the jewelry in museums, from all the different cultures. I love the African jewelry. I love, pretty much everything, Greek jewelry, Roman, all the things. It just amazes me that they were able to hammer out pieces of jewelry like with that substantial, just with the girth of the metals and stuff, that they were able to just like hammer that out, and that they learned to do wax casting to make big pieces of jewelry, or little pieces, whatever, but just that they were able to come up with these methods of making the gold pieces and bronze and all the different things. And of course, only back then, only I think if you were of a certain status were you able to actually wear the gemstones. So what's kind of funny to me also is that, a lot of the fake jewelry without gemstones, but mimicking the gemstones, colored beads and different things that commoners would use to actually mock the kings and queens and people of higher social standing. I think that's kind of funny that it was made to mock them. So yeah, so we have all sorts of reasons that jewelry was made, and as I was talking about, made from all sorts of things, from chicken bones and just whatever. I actually had, it didn't surprise me when I was, when I learned that they used to make it from seashells and bones. And of course, hunters were some of the earliest wearers of jewelry, and they would wear things from from pretty much, I guess, bones and teeth and claws and horns. And so it didn't surprise me when a guy told me, he was actually a gemstone dealer that I used to buy from at a show that I would go to, and he always had an amazing story to tell you. And I just remember him telling me that when he first started making jewelry, he just used chicken bones that he found in the trash can on the streets, and twigs and just all sorts of things. And he said that he sold out pretty much every day of all the jewelry that he would make. And I was like, wow. And so then he started selling gemstones, but I just thought that was a funny little story. But yeah, I love the idea that jewelry stands the test of time. Well-made jewelry stands the test of time. Whereas if you buy from an artisan, for example, generally your piece is made to last. It's going to be there. You'll be able to use it as an heirloom piece, hand it down to your children. The pieces that are mass produced, made in certain countries, and aren't very well made, you have to worry about lead and all sorts of junk being in them that can make your kid or yourself sick. So buying from an artisan is always just a good move, and it lasts. And I like the idea that it can be handed down, and that maybe even though you're gone, your piece maybe belong to somebody many years from now. The pieces that I make my jewelry from have already been here, in some cases hundreds of years. So there's no reason for me to think that now that I've bettered it and made it into a newer piece of jewelry, using good components along with, and there's no reason for me to believe that my pieces won't stick around for a long time as well. So I did come by my love of vintage jewelry. Very honestly, my mom loved vintage jewelry. I'm not sure that I saw her, other than maybe my dad might have given her a watch or something. I think I talk about that later. I don't think I saw her in very much that was new. She really genuinely loved the old stuff, and she wore the stuff that she had for a long time. And And then of course I wore it as well because I grew up in the 80s. Madonna had all the rhinestone pieces on and just had them piled on, and I loved that look. So I was one of those girls that walked around looking like Madonna, sort of, I guess, but not really. But yeah. So I ended up, even once I was out of high school and all, I always wore vintage clothing and vintage jewelry and developed a real love for it. So that when I did come out of college and ended up being a sales rep for a while, in between appointments, I might pop into an antique store. And next thing you know, I just had so much stuff. At first, it was to furnish my house, but then it became just a lot of stuff. And I had an antique space for a while. And having that antique space was, it allowed me to collect a lot of different things. So I had furniture pieces and smalls, which are just small things like glassware and different things like that, collectibles. But I also had purses. I love purses, and I love, of course, the old jewelry and just all sorts of accessories, old belts and things like that. So, oh, great, LaDonna. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that you love the rhinestone stuff as well. But yeah, it is a great, it's a great thing to collect. But once I had that antique space, the place that I was in, it used to be downtown Raleigh, and it closed down. So when I got all my stuff out, I just started toying with the old buttons and some of the old jewelry that was maybe broken and that kind of thing, and just making my own thing. And people around town would stop me and go, "Hey, where'd you get that bracelet? Where'd you get that necklace?" And I was like, "Oh." And a friend of mine that actually sold her things wholesale, she made these beautiful, beautiful things out of German old antique parts. And so she told me, she said, "Let me see that bracelet you've got on." It was all made of mother of pearl buttons. And she said, "You could sell that, right?" And she was in some pretty big retail stores, so I believed her. So next thing I know, I kind of really tripped over my first accounts, and I ended up with several accounts before I even really tried. But I wanted to show you some of the things that inspired me. So if I could get the Museum of History folks to roll that beautiful footage from the first video I wanted to show. I grew up with my mom, who loved old jewelry, and we would pop into flea markets and antique shops. In fact, I don't think I have ever really seen her in jewelry that was newer. Maybe my dad gave her a watch or something, but for the most part, she wore vintage jewelry always, as did I. I actually have never gotten my ears pierced because I just always wore the old clip-ons, or I had tons of earrings. We couldn't get our ears pierced till we were 16 anyway. So I already had so many earrings when my mom said, "Hey, do you want to go get your ear pierced?" I was like, "Well, what am I going to do with all my earrings that I have? I loved them." So I wanted to take this opportunity to show you a few things that I guess kind of give me inspiration, and maybe some things that I actually use in my pieces, things like that. So I'm just going to show you, I've got a couple of trays full of things, even old buckles and buttons and finished pieces of jewelry, some of which are just pieces that I collect and intend to keep and never change. Some pieces that I actually would upfit into a newer heirloom piece. Sometimes they have problems and I fix them first. In fact, most of the time that's the case, because I can't really bear to break apart something that is an old antique, like something from the 1800s. I'm not going to just cut that up and make it into something. At least most of the time I've done it before. But I want to show you some pieces that I think are pretty great. Starting with this first tray. Hopefully you can see these pretty well. The pieces here, this is a little parure or set of made by Marcel Boucher. Marcel Boucher was a Parisian who came to the United States to work under Cartier. So he did make costume jewelry sets. He started his own company, and I do think he made some real jewelry as well. But that these are some of his really superior. I don't know if you can see that these are masks, like tribal faces or masks that is in these pieces, and then the turquoise glass stones This is one of my favorite sets that I own. One of my other favorite jewelers is Miriam Haskell. And I have quite a few of her pieces. I don't know why I didn't bring any of her necklaces, but I have quite a few of her brooches right here. These that I'm touching are all her, and this bracelet is her. I have several necklaces, pearl mostly, but that are really beautiful. And then I love things like this French Champlive old antique buckle, probably from the 1800s. And I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can see it well, but it is really just simply beautiful. And then I have also, and it's the buckle, so it breaks into two parts like that on purpose. And then also I have this little notebook that's actually got like a Mother Mary on there, and it's sterling, but it opens up and it has a little pencil that slides into there. It opens up and it has like a little notepad. I just love stuff like this. It's so different. And then also we have a tray here that's got some of the steel cuts that I use quite a bit in my jewelry. I use a lot of steel cut buttons because these are just amazing. They're actually, each one's hand riveted from behind. So it's like a lot of work into these. And these were popular in Victorian times, and they're just extremely well made, but they are steel. So a lot of them have been damaged. So when you can find one that's in great shape like these, it's quite something. And then I have a beautiful oak leaf and acorn locket here that's an old book chain. Got an old, this is a match case, and those opened up and they literally kept their matches in there. And I love the way that these are so ornate. And this little makeup case, so ornate. And you know, these popped open and you would actually have different makeup piece, you know, sorts of makeup that you would have in here. And these are all in great shape. Carved ivory flower necklace here. Getting to some other things here. There's also buttons that I use quite a bit. And I love these storyteller buttons. Some of them have things like this has got a little Lilliputian or a little fairy on there with a butterfly. There's one that's got a pair of lovers on it. Actually, that's not the lovers one, sorry, but yeah, and then it has steel cuts around the edges. But yeah, there's really beautiful old perfume button with maybe a gargoyle or some kind of head on there. And then we've got a lot of Bakelite, old vintage, early plastic and carved mother of pearl buttons here. But these are things that I love to collect and use in my jewelry, especially the buttons. But some of the pieces are just pieces that I collect because I just find them fascinating and very ornate, but yet utilitarian, some of them. Yeah, so these are the types of things I use. And I love when I find new things that I can either use in my jewelry or I can just collect if it's something I want to keep, which I need no more jewelry at this point. But I also have another business called From Lillian that I also sell the pieces that I can't bear to part with, but that I couldn't not buy, that I sell on. I have an online presence to sell those pieces as well. So those are just like some of the little pieces that I literally randomly chose some things that I wanted to show you, but some of the things that I make were just they're just kind of all over the place. So I just kind of didn't know what to grab, but it just kind of shows you that you literally can go around your home and you can take things that I've made pieces for people that were they literally would send me that. Sometimes people will send me like a box or a package of like their grandfather's, maybe he was a doctor. I had one that was a doctor in the military, so he had a lot of buttons that like had caduceus on there, and like a lot of he was in the church, so there was a lot of church related like enameled pieces, and and all sorts of stuff like that. He had an elk tooth hunting whistle that was kind of my favorite thing. So of course I made it front and center in this charm necklace that I made for her. And it ended up, oh, I should have put a picture, included a picture of that. But anyway, it ended up being really beautiful, and it really touches me to, she, when she got the package, she said one of her best friends had just happened to visit her, and they were sitting at the table, and she opened it up with her friend, and she said they both started crying. So that really, I love that. That is one of my absolute favorite things, is to hear the stories of people who have commissioned me to make a piece for them, or pieces for them. Like in the case of a friend of mine, or not a friend of mine, I met her at an Asheville show. She sent me a package with buttons of that were her mother's, and she had, I think it was 4 siblings, so there was 5 total of them, and she gave each one of their favorite colors in the note that she sent to me, and asked me if I could make something out of these buttons. Now, I hope, yes, but I thought these were going to be super incredible, amazing buttons, but they were actually buttons that were a lot of plastics and things like that. But I was able to make great necklaces by just like layering them with different like rhinestone pieces, and adding like filigrees to them, beading buttons through the center of their holes, and it made them look a lot fancier than they did in the beginning. And once again, she got it, and she was pretty emotional. So that really touches me, that people are able to take things that were there, that belonged to their family, and make them, instead of them sitting in a box and collecting dust, they're able to appreciate them and wear them every day, and give them as gifts to other loved ones who can pass them down to their daughters, because that was the plan with those. So that was pretty great. So let's see. So as I was saying, I started making jewelry out of all the smalls from the antique shop, and in doing so, realized that I was just kind of making up a way to put these things together. Like my very first bracelet, the one that the friend told me I could sell, it was literally an old bracelet already that I used, and just I literally just epoxied beautiful buttons, but I sewed things through the middle to kind of hide the holes, and affixed them to this old bracelet. That was the base of it. So but I mean, I still have it to this day. Once again, that's something I should have pulled and showed you, but I still have it to this day, and it's absolutely beautiful still. So if I do say so myself. So yeah, it's a lot of fun making jewelry. I saw that someone said that they loved the rhinestone stuff as well, and I also saw someone that said that they loved Miriam Haskell. That's very exciting to me, because I get really afraid that people are not going to know what those things are, and a lot of times I'll see like these pieces of art that people have made, like these Christmas tree things and stuff like that, and I can tell that they used like Schiaparelli's or Haskell's or some of these big names in old costume jewelry that are amazing, and they just kind of glued it to this thing, and I'm like, oh my God, that was such a beautiful piece of work. But people might say the same thing about the jewelry that I make from them. But again, I mostly only use things that have problems, that like some of the enameling is off of it, or it's broken, there's no pin back on it, or that kind of thing. So I actually feel like I'm giving life to them again, as opposed to them getting thrown away or something. So I didn't even know a bead shop was a thing. And then I was kind of introduced to Ornamentia. So shout out to Cynthia. So that's I had been buying a little bit of things online that I could find, but then they never turned out to be what you'd think that they would be when you saw them in real life. And so yeah, I started going there, and it just made it a lot easier to put things together, to know that certain components existed that you could use as a base, because it was before I started metalsmithing. So I couldn't make the little connectors and things. I couldn't solder a jump ring onto something like I can now. And so I just want to show you a little bit. I now make 2 different lines of jewelry. I make the vintage pieces made from old antique stuff, but I also make a line of jewelry that is made of metal, brass, sterling, mostly brass though, because I literally love the look of brass. And I, just started using the torch and making my own settings and that type of thing. And so I have two distinctive lines of jewelry now. And it is time to show the second video where I'm kind of showing you a little bit about that. Kakamami Jewelry makes a couple of different styles of jewelry. I make my pieces from antique and vintage components. That's the first style I started making. And I sold those into retail stores and also just online as well, but mostly through retail stores for quite a while. And then I started doing shows. So for the last many years, I've been doing shows up until the pandemic. And of course, in 2020, I did not have one single show. So now we are mainly selling online. But I wanted to show you the different styles of jewelry I make. I make things, and I'm just gonna move the camera down so you can see. Sorry about that. So that you can see the styles of things that I make. I make pieces from everything from just bits from rhinestone pieces. There's a lot of buttons in there. There's even a pocket knife, an enameled Mother Mary charm. There's old antique book chain and old glass scarabs. And I mix that also with pieces that sometimes with some of the pieces that I've handmade, like this little sterling piece that is just melted silver that I then pounded out into a little pendant or a little charm, I guess, more so. So that's some of the types of things that I make, as well as I have another tray here to show you of things that I've made, again, from old, there's old buttons in here. That's an old antique enameled button with steel cuts around the edges. It's a very beautiful button. I hope you can see it. This is an old pendant and it's double-sided. So you get a different look on each side, but it is made from, you have to excuse me, I've got this brace on my hand because I've been having quite a bit of hand pain. But this is made from actually butterfly wings. And that's why you get all the beautiful iridescence behind the birds that are all made from real bird feathers. And so that's quite an amazing little pendant there. And then I've just built a necklace around it using faceted tourmaline and sterling silver chain. And then I have pieces. These are made from old glass, flatback stones and antique buttons and antique beads, and same here, antique beads, and then I've beaded chains for them. These are done on pearls, and these are beaded chains with, again, faceted tourmaline, and these are just glass beads here. And then I have a bracelet down here that I've made from an old Mason's sword chain. It's the chain that held their swords. And I just love it because it's always so ornate and beautiful that when I can find it and when I can afford to buy it, I buy it, because I do like to make bracelets out of those and other things as well. But these are some of the styles that I make with using vintage. And then I also have pieces that I make that are using buttons. That's more of a, this is a style that I did this year, and it was so that you could buy and layer pieces. So this one's got a cross, it's got an antique button, steel cut button that I've put in the middle of the cross. And then it's got another, that's on sterling silver chain. I love mixing metals. That is also an old antique 1800s steel cut button. And same here, an old antique steel cut button that's mixed metals. It's brass and steel cuts on the edges. And I've put this on a darkened sterling silver chain. And I just love the layered look of that. So I'm doing a lot of these layered looks this year. I'm actually wearing that look myself. And these earrings are in that style, as well as, I don't know if you can see them, let's see. So these are some of the pieces that I'm showing now, and I'm about to show necklaces as well that I do out of mostly brass, but I make pieces that I like the look of the primitive things like you see like in museums and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of the look that I think that I've kind of ended up with. So I'm going to show you some of those. And I make things like this little color piece here that is more like a choker style. And then we have this one. I actually I kind of mixed the vintage with it because this is an old watch chain. And I've mixed brass, and this is copper actually that I've blackened here. And then, excuse me, and then I've also made some really primitive looking fun pieces that are big and statement pieces, I would venture to say on this. And then these are for your hair. I love these little hair, and these have sold really well for me as well. I love these hair pieces that I've done with different, I always do just different shapes, or sometimes I actually do these with the vintage too, and I put old antique earrings or buttons or something up top. So those are a lot of fun to make as well. But yeah, so I have a couple of different looks. The nice thing about it is I'm always changing up and doing different things. And I also caught the eye of of someone who was presenting his designer collection at New York Fashion Week a few years back, and was able to put my pieces on those models marching down the runway with his pieces. He's out of Winston-Salem, and but he lives in New York now and works for a large brand. But yeah, it was a very fun experience getting to do that. And I just wanted to show you a couple of the different styles that I do. Thank you guys for your comments. I appreciate all the love. As far as techniques, I started making my jewelry, just putting it together however I could. I literally just started doing it as I had lost my mom and just needed something to do after work, and just kind of made it a hobby of mine at first. But as I got started and people would stop me on the streets, that's kind of what made me decide, hey, if I'm doing this, I picked up about 5 stores without really asking, literally just kind of met people that were like, hey, do you wholesale it? And so I kind of tripped over my first accounts. And so then from there, I started to do it full time. And then I added the metalsmithing literally to be able to upfit things without having to use epoxy or glue quite so much, which the things that I use, I have a lot of confidence in them staying. I've literally not had things returned to me. And usually if it is, it would be like a jump ring or something like that. And now I know how to solder those together. So I went from starting with a small little torch, like a little butane torch, then to the propane. I used propane for a little while, and now I'm onto an acetylene tank. So I actually do soldering now to outfit. Like sometimes I'll take like a drawer pull and I'll add some jump rings, or I'll just whatever it takes really to make it work in a piece of jewelry is what I do, if I need to drill it or just whatever it takes. So yeah, so that's how I make my pieces. But I think that what I want to do now is go ahead and show my final video, because it's kind of a how-to. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to truly make it right here because my hand is really giving me a lot of trouble right now. So I'm hoping that this video will help, and you can go back to it, and you guys can feel free to email me at bkakamamie@gmail.com if you have any questions afterwards. But I will show you in the video how you can make a couple of pretty simple things. So it's time for that final video, and then maybe some questions. So I really wanted to teach you to make something using some very basic things that everybody might have, such as buttons, such as beads that you might have, gotten from some old necklaces or something that were broken that you could redirect into some other piece of jewelry. And so the problem with that is I'm having some dire hand pain, and I did take off my brace because I wanted to be able to do some things, and I tried, and it's what I'm going to do instead is show you how you can make some things. I'm going to show you what it took to make the bracelet that I'm wearing here. It's got different chains, it's got different beads, and the metals are not even matching. There's a combination of brass and blackened metal here, and there's a little old key dangling from it. But I can show you how to make this with literally just a few twists of some wire, and just showing you how to gather the things that you need. So I'm going to show you that, and I'm also going to show you how to make a mask chain so that when you are masking up, you can also have something that will hold the mask, like a simple chain that will hook on to each side of it, so that when you take it off, you'll just be kind of wearing it, and so you won't have to keep up with your mask chain. And you will have, I'm going to show you how to make a pretty decorative one, as well as just one that you can simply make out of chain, like what I have here. So let's get started. So what I have here, if you will look first at the things here in the back, what it took to make this bracelet that I was just wearing is literally just a few things that I gathered. This is it. This is everything that's in this bracelet, with the exception of I didn't have another tiny key to use as a charm, so I thought we'd use this sweet little, just a little patterned piece of metal as the charm on this one, so it would look like this instead of that. Or you could use anything. I mean, you could use a little drop, you know, just like if you have a little drop or something, a little rhinestone bead or anything really. But this literally took a bit of chain. Like this is literally maybe an inch of chain. And so yeah, it's slightly over an inch, about an inch and a quarter of chain here. I've got 3 beads that are rather large, probably 12 millimeter beads or so. A couple jump rings, and I am using here something that everybody might not have, but it's the kind of thing, just like the beads or the clasps or the wire, that you could pick up at, say, Michael's or somewhere like that. And it's just a little thing that you would use, and you would literally just use like some E6000 glue and attach that. And how I usually do it is I glue both sides and I let them sit for a while to cure, and then I put them together. That makes your hold really, really, really tight, and it doesn't come apart. So, and then these are a couple smoky quartz beads. There's literally just 2 of those. And I went ahead and pre-cut the wire. And these are just, I used 18 gauge, so that way, I'm just going to show you with a little twist of the hand. The only thing that you really need to do to do this is to take your pliers, some round pliers, and just literally turn your hand, which is hard for me to do with this one right now. It's ridiculous, but and you get a little turn, and then you just stick it right through your bead. If you you know, certainly don't do it like I'm doing it, because I can't seem to have, these are lava beads, and so they have little holes all over them, so sometimes it's hard to find the hole. There we go. And then you'll just do the same thing on the other side. You just bend that and you twist it, and then that's the way you attach these. And then you literally can just, if you wanted to do the same pattern here, this will be on YouTube, so you can actually look this up and actually make this exact bracelet. But I've done the same thing. I've got a little the same button over here. If I were to kind of line these up, the smoky quartz bead on each side. One thing I've left off is another little circle, didn't I? But anyway, you get the idea. We're going to use a different one over here. But yeah, we just really want to have the kind of the same line up. We're going to just twist. Literally all you have to do is wrap 5 beads, and then we've got this bracelet. So that's just, you know, maybe you don't like that design. The point is just that you can literally take any type of little utilitarian things that you have around, like a button. And, you know, like if you don't love just these little black buttons like this one, maybe you want to use something that is, you know, a mother of pearl button. And maybe you want to layer it with another button on top, which I think is a really good look too. I love to layer buttons because it really gives a good depth, texture, and just adds a lot to the whole look, I think. So that's just a little brass button that I've put over the top of a mother of pearl button. So there's a thought. So that's one thing that you could make pretty easily. And I also wanted to show you the mask chain. I literally took, if I'm not mistaken, I think this one's 24 inches, but you can make it to whatever length you want. Yeah, this one's 24 inches, and it allows you to clip it to your mask. And then just to kind of give you some instruction, it's really quite simple, and you might go, duh, on this one, but I just think that with the masks being so prevalent, I mean, you have to wear these things. Any little thing that helps is really good. And I keep seeing masks in the streets, which is crazy. People apparently have them in their hands or something. Maybe they drop them, and then the next thing you know, they don't have a mask to wear. So I wanted to show you that, you know, basically you have your mask on, then you get to a place in the car or something where you don't need it, and you literally just unloop these from your ears and let it go, and then it's on you until the next time you need it. So I use mine absolutely daily, but this is a real simple one. It is literally just whatever kind of chain you like, if you want to buy it, or if you just want to use a chain that you have around the house from a piece of jewelry that you already owned, you can do that. And the only thing that I've done is attached with jump rings. Basically, that's just an opening and closing of a little circle, a little lobster clasp at each end. And there's other kinds of little clasps that you can get and use, but I like the way that the lobster clasp, because it's just really easy for me. So, so that's that. But you could also use something a little more decorative. Let's say you've got a pearl necklace and you just want to use, you want to make it with something like that and have it be a little more decorative. So you've got a pearl necklace here that's already strung, or you can string your pearls. Again, I just was trying to do as least as possible with this wrist right now. So, so I just kind of did a little quick design using, this is about 17 inches of pearls here. And to make it 24, you maybe want to add some beads and just add a little visual interest to it. And so I just added 4 beads on each side. So again, you could use that same technique that I did using the wire and then twisting each end, putting a bead on and then connecting them and then adding the clasp at your end. And then you've got a pretty mask chain that's like a beautiful necklace that is holding your mask on. And here's the great thing about this. Let's say in 6 months, we no longer have to wear our masks, and you're thinking to yourself, what else could I do with this mask chain that I made? Well, here's something, just a thought. You could certainly take just like a ring, a jump ring of sorts. And I literally just grabbed something off my desk here, but you may want to get a little more fancy with it. Use a nicer round thing. I was trying to see if I had anything here desktop that would be nicer to use, but either way, this is quite sufficient, because the great thing about it is you literally could just clasp these onto this jump ring. And if you have any kind of pendant, anything, it doesn't even matter. Let's say you want to just put like another rhinestone thing to match these rhinestones. Maybe you could just put something like that, attach a pearl or something. and use it as a necklace afterwards. So I don't know if you can see that, but I just think it would be a good opportunity to make yourself something really different that nobody else has got. Or like I had this little angel piece. It's really sweet, little angels kissing or whatever. And it's not even set to be anything quite yet. It's just a stamping, but like I could drill a hole in that or solder a jump ring onto it in my case probably, but use that as your pendant. I don't know what you think about that, but that is just some things that you could do with basically a strand of pearls that are already strung, or string them if you like. If you know how to do that. A few beads that you've pulled out of other necklaces. These are literally old beads that I've pulled out of other necklaces. A couple lobster clasps, and that's it for your mask. And then if you want to add a jump ring and a pendant to have a necklace, a long necklace, then that would be really beautiful. So I kept calling that a jump ring there on that mask holder that I then turned into a necklace. It's actually just a large link from some big chain that I had. Or you could, they're actually just really nice flat circles that you could use to attach there. But I just thought that would be a good twofer. You make yourself a lovely mask chain, and then you're able to use it as a necklace too. Or for that matter, you can attach those tiny little things. Actually, I have some, they're not right here, but the things that you can attach to the end with just using the lobster clasp, and you could use it as an eyeglass holder as well, or a shades sunglasses holder. So there's many uses for that second item. And it's literally like, if you don't know how to string pearls, you can literally just use a strand of pearls that you already have. I don't know too many people who don't have at least a strand of fake pearls or something that they could use. And stringing them is not real hard. So you can do that with just like some BeeLine wire or do it on silk, but it's not super hard. The knotting is a little bit harder. But yeah, you could certainly pick up a technique like that and make yourself a mask chain, or literally just put a couple of lobsters on the end of some chain and do it. So let me know if you have any questions about any of those projects that I have. I'll be happy to answer you if I can, and direct you maybe to somewhere where you could pick up some of the things to make them. Now, does anybody have questions for me?
Thank you, Mamie. That was so wonderful. Oh my gosh, that was great. We do have a couple questions for you from the audience. The first one is, what techniques do you use to put components together? Soldering, twisting wire. Did you teach yourself how to do this?
I am pretty much completely self-taught. I dream of the days when I could maybe go to like Penland School or somewhere like that to pick up some techniques, but I am a single person who is completely self-supporting and never have neither the time nor the money. It's kind of expensive to do those things. So I literally will, if I want to pick up something, I'll look for videos a lot of times. I will ask people. I'm in my studio right now, which is downtown Raleigh. I'm at 14 Glenwood Avenue. As soon as you walk in the building, there I am. But I used to be down the hall in this same building, and I was with a metalsmith, and I would I taught myself because I didn't want to bug her. But sometimes when I would have questions, she didn't mind at all if I went and said, "Hey, what am I doing wrong here? I can't get this flux to flow." So, yeah, or this solder, this solder to flow. So yeah, so I am pretty much self-taught, and I do everything. I do. I started out beading. I used a lot of seed beads to make my first jewelry, tiny little seed beads, and that's that. I still use the vintage components, but I most often did put them on seed beaded necklaces and that kind of thing, or I might mix it, and I learned to wire wrap, and that's what I did next. So there's kind of been an evolution of Mamie jewelry, Cockamamie jewelry, and I actually have collectors, I'll call them at this point, because they've literally been with me from the very beginning. One of the first stores I sold at here in Raleigh was Galatea, and there are still people from there and from many other stores that told me, "Hey, I bought you at this store back in, 2001 or whatever. And I'm like, what? And then they will sometimes send me pictures of, look, this is all the pieces I have. And I'm like, what? You've got more stuff than I do. So I love that. Love it so much. It just gives me chills. So those are the people that keep me alive, is the collectors. Cause I wouldn't say, like, I'm not in a ton of stores these days. I feel like the format of my whole business changed a little bit with a lot of people started making jewelry. And so then stores had to, they have to look out for their bottom dollar as well. So a lot of times they went from buying wholesale from me to taking people who would just let them sell their jewelry on consignment. So they only have to put out money if they sell it. And I mean, I understand that, but at the same time, I just didn't really want to do consignment. So it's just, to each their own, but it just changed the dynamic of my business a little bit, the way that I do business. So then I started doing shows, which is a whole nother thing. But I digress. I know she asked me what techniques I used. So.
Well, the next question kind of follows up on what you touched on. How did you get started in metalsmithing?
Okay, yeah. I really just picked up the metalsmithing because it had always been of interest to me, but I was quite happy just doing the vintage stuff, except for sometimes I wasn't having any problems with, because I normally use like a really good glue, and the way that I do it makes it work. Like literally, as I said, I've not had anything returned to me because it just like came apart because of that. And I use epoxies and stuff like that. But I was more interested in learning like cold connections. So I learned to rivet a little bit. And then I thought, well, it'd really be great if like I could solder a jump ring here or a bail, or, just make a whole setting, like a claw setting to hold something. Or because sometimes I get old antique pieces of glass that are so beautiful, they're just breathtaking. They look like a Lalique or something. They're like etched, beautiful, like reverse carved and painted or whatever pieces of glass. And I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to make that into something, but I don't know how, because it doesn't do to just glue it onto a setting. Because first of all, sometimes you can see the glue if it's a see-through, if it's a glass piece. So you need to be able to make a setting for that. And that is why that I picked up the metalsmithing. But to be honest with you, I do upfit the vintage stuff, but I think I make more in my metal line than I do. In other words, the reason that I learned it, I'm not sure that I'm using it for that intended as much as I am for just making metal pieces, because it turned out that those sold really well for me. Like some people just love my metal line and they don't even look at the vintage stuff. So it just worked out well. And I love that people like both lines.
The next question is, do you teach classes?
I don't teach classes. It's something that I've toyed with, especially right now because of the whole, this was weird for me to do that little how-to right there, and I would have rather been able to actually show you more so than to just kind of point at things and go, this is what you do. But I think it's hard to see on this, or I'm using the iPhone, so it's kind of, I think it might be hard for you guys to see anyway like that. But the reason that I don't is, you might have noticed through my videos, I don't like to call attention to my own, but my hands shake a bit. And people are like, you make jewelry and your hands shake? They really do. They shake a bit, and they have like forever, and I've had, nobody knows why. So between that and just not, I'm not a person that has a degree in it. Like a lot of my friends, I have a lot of metalsmith friends who like went to ECU for it or that kind of thing. Maybe I just don't feel like, that those are the people that need to teach. I don't know. But yeah, I don't teach classes yet, but I have toyed with it. So, but I'll be happy to answer any questions as if I can. So.
And the last one is, what is your, I think you touched on this earlier as well, what is your biggest inspiration for making your pieces? Does it flow? Does it change? Is there like one at the heart of your inspiration that just kind of encompasses all the pieces that you make?
Wow, that's hard. I literally I'll make things that I want to wear, and I make things out of things that draw me to them. Like if I'm running through the flea market and I see something that I'm like, whoa, that was incredible, I'm just going to hold up a piece here just because this is the kind of thing. Like this is like I don't know. I don't even know what this was. It has some kind of weird pen thing on the back, something tribal-y looking. I don't know what this is. But when I saw it, and I actually found this at the flea market, and I might make something out of this one day. I might just keep it and look at it a lot. But I might make something, a whole line that kind of centered around this look. I don't know. Because for example, the piece that I have on, for example, I saw a piece in a museum that it's like my memory of it, because like I saw it and then like a while later I thought, oh, I want to make a big, heavy, robust, crazy brass piece like that. So I just went for it. And this stuff is so hard to bend. You have to heat it, and that's probably what happens to both my wrists. But yeah, you have to hammer away at it while it's super hot and that kind of thing. So yeah, just dealing with really super heavy metals like I do, and I probably need to learn casting so that I don't have to do it this way. But yeah, the handmade thing can be really hard on the hands, but there's no one thing that really inspires me. I just really love old jewelry, and I look at it all. I look at things from Victorian times, and I use a lot of Victorian old book chain and cameos, and just all sorts of stuff from that time period, Edwardian, old African beads, just pretty much I see inspiration everywhere. I just think things are really beautiful, and I love them when they serve a multi-purpose. So that's why I showed like the chain. A lot of times I'll build a bracelet, an old antique bracelet, into a necklace that I have, and I make it such that you can clip that bracelet out and wear it by itself, but you can also have it still, making that the necklace as well, and you can wear the necklace with or without it. So I do things like that because I like the idea of being able to I like a piece to multitask. It needs to pay its way, right? So you buy a piece, you pay a certain amount, you can divide it by 3 because you can wear it 3 ways. How about that for cost effective?
That's awesome. Yeah, like you were speaking to us about the mask chain and how it could also be a necklace later when we don't have to wear masks. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, glasses or shades. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is all of our questions. Mamie, we want to thank you so much for speaking with us today. This has been so wonderful. And thank you to all those of you who jumped on and joined us today. As a reminder, if you'd like to see some of Mamie's pieces, we have this available in the museum shop, ncmuseumofhistoryshop.com. And we hope to see all of you virtually soon. We have a lot of great February programs coming up, ncmuseumofhistory.org, and you can kind of check that out. Thank you so much again, Mamie.
Thank you, LaDonna, Michelle, Dina, everybody that weighed in and said stuff. That was great. I appreciate your attendance. Thank you, Museum of History, for asking me.
It was our pleasure. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Take care.
Bye-bye.